Welcome to another podcast of Field Talk against urban issues. And now, your host, U.S. Army Ranger, published author and university professor, Dr. Aaron Bryant.
Okay, so let's start and figure out what we can do for you. And again, I'm going to start what has worked for me, or I should say is working for me. So one of the things that I thought was a good technique is, reality check, if you will, is listen to your emotions. So I listen to my emotions, at least I had started to. And that means to not deny how you feel. If you feel a certain way, you have to pay attention and address it. I talked about this in a previous show about when you're taking medication, don't blindly take the meds because that's what your doctor prescribed. Pay attention to your body and understand how it's reacting to the medication. Well, that's kind of the same thing with your emotions. Your emotions are reacting a certain way. Understand why they're reacting that way. Pay attention to it and understand it so that way you can be able to identify what triggered it, how you're reacting to it, and what do you need to do moving forward related to it. So for me, by listening to my emotions, it helps me make decisions. I look for the ones where my emotions are in a good place. So what caused that to happen? I want to know because I want to be in that good place again. Who caused it to happen? What did I do? I love to play golf. So for me to get on that golf course, having that opportunity to play for 4 hours, 4.5 hours, that could put me in a good place. So I will pay attention to that. Riding my Harley, that wind therapy, that could put me in a good place. These are things that you have to pay attention to versus something else that may not be the case. So again, listen. You also can maintain a strong support of positive people around you. One of my, I'm involved with a motorcycle club, and I'm involved at the chapter level and various levels, and and I have friends all over the city, state, and the nation. And it's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I would say just about every single person, like 99.9% of the people are good people, very positive people. And even the one at 0.001, it probably attempting to be a good person, just probably has a personality trait that doesn't click with me. And that's not his or her fault or mine. But the beauty is you're surrounding yourself by positivity. So that could be your family, that could be friends, it could be an organization. These are things that will help keep you in a good place. Could be a reading club, book club. That's okay. I have a poker group that I play with. And it's interesting because they play poker, I have different groups that I play with. And there's a Tuesday night group and a Wednesday night group and a Thursday night group. Come to find out, the Tuesday night group is very toxic. So I don't go to Tuesday night anymore. Although I can handle it and I can actually pretty much give as well as take, it just wasn't positive anymore. So why associate with people like that? Whereas I can actually enjoy myself on the other nights. So again, think about that. Pay attention. Surround yourself with positive people. That reflects and comes through. They say laughter is really good for you. And if you're around positive people, I'm sure you're going to have moments to laugh. Well, there you go. Another thing that has worked for me is not being afraid to admit what I am dealing with. Okay, so do not be afraid to admit what you're dealing with. This show, Dr. Bryant Speaks, has been very therapeutic for me. I have said this in earlier episodes, how this show has helped me more than I think that my communication has helped others. Because I get on this microphone, I do the research, and I'm able to talk, communicate, and being able to learn and interact. A lot of my shows, I have guests, and those guests bring a wealth of knowledge. So it allows me to be able to come to terms and understand and admit my problems, my shortcomings. Now, again, I don't make excuses. You know, the fact that I'm not married anymore based on choices that I've done, I can't say, oh, it's because of this over here based on my military, dealings. Nah, at the end of the day, it's still a decision, and I have to own that. But again, we're trying to find peace now for the present so we can move forward and try to live a better life. I have a fireman friend. He calls it Aaron 2.0 because he has his 2.0 version. And so we joke about that because we're trying to find that 2.0. Mistakes have been made, choices have been, executed, things are in the past. So what are you doing now? Well, whatever you may choose to do, to be in a position to be the best at it, let's try to find that peace. And that means admitting right now what you're dealing with. Okay, I hope that helps. Another element is practicing self-care. Now, that's pretty self-explanatory because that really just is you putting yourself first and doing the things you need to do. The problem with this is that it's so big and massive of all the things that you're responsible for of practicing, and depending on who you ask, right? So you'll have somebody will tell you yoga. You'll have somebody else will tell you mediation. You'll have somebody else will tell you church. You have somebody, on and on and on. Self-care, look at the part that says self. Now I'm going to take that and say selfless or selfish. You need to figure it out for yourself and do what you need to do by caring about yourself. And practice, that's the operative word. And practice till it's perfect about caring about you. Again, I can't tell you what that is. You have to figure it out, but I want you to make sure that is a priority. Another thing I have done is uncluttered my world and my mind. Now, I can tell you for a fact, I was very cluttered, but it was a positive cluttering. I used to be involved with so many things. I was doing this, I was doing that, I was involved here, I was involved there. I was all over the place. My brain was constantly spinning, but I noticed that things were falling apart. It was almost like if you turn on the water, the sink, turn on the faucet, and you put your hand under the water, and everything is just, the water just coming through your fingers. I could not hold on to hardly anything. The wetness of my hand only proved that I put my hand under the faucet. Only proved that I was there. But I had nothing to show forth because I wasn't able to keep up. My brain wasn't able to manage it, and things were just not there. So I had to get to the point of, do you remember the previous one about admitting? Well, I had to get to the point of admitting my shortcomings and got to the point where I had to unclutter myself from a lot of things. And that was really hard to do. And to be very honest, I still am challenged with that because part of me still cares about people, still is ambitious, still wants to be able to achieve and do things at the best capability that I can. I mean, I'm still very competitive, but there's still some reality about me and what I can do that I have to face. So by uncluttering myself and getting rid of things, it allows me to sort of hone in on some one or two things and being able to do that. And so far that is working. So think about that. Now, this next one is a little interesting because most people would not consider this as a technique about finding peace, but I'm going to explain it because I think this definitely is important. And that is being early. I luckily didn't have to teach or train myself to be early. I've always been a very prompt person, even before the military. You know, the military has a saying, hurry to wait. I was always like that anyway. I hated being late to a movie. Now, these days, you can show up at a movie 10 minutes late, the movie still hasn't started because they got commercials and everything else. Well, even when I was young, I always wanted to be on time. That was always been the sort of my nature. So that was an easy thing for me. But what's important about this is that you don't stress yourself. Think about that. Can you imagine by leaving your home late when you have to be somewhere, or missing the bus and catching the later bus and you're running behind? All of a sudden your anxiety's up, your stress level's up. I mean, I don't know how important it is to be somewhere, but I think that if you were actually 10 minutes, 15 minutes early, the ability and the opportunity to just chill goes a long way. One less thing for you to have to worry about, not a conversation. I mean, from my experience, it's usually, how long were you waiting for? And of course, I always lie and say, oh, not long. Well, sometimes it's been 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So again, it just depends. But keep that in mind. That might be something you have to teach yourself. Not everybody is prompt like me, but try it out and see if that works for you. Another thing is escaping. Now, this is one of my highlights because this brought me to this particular podcast in the first place. Escaping, getting away, disconnecting. Well, I have come to do that on a regular basis. In fact, that has been one of the things that has worked for me in almost providing a predominant amount of therapy. So as you know, in my previous podcasts, you hear that I go to other countries, but specifically Mexico. And you will find me there on the beach, basically just sitting on the sand for hours and hours. And similar, it's not so much peace and quiet like Oprah says you don't have to actually do. But for me, when I'm sitting out there, it is similar to that. Although people are walking by, I have locals who are trying to sell me something, things are going on. But it's so interesting how I can sit out there for such a long period of time, and the tranquility, the peace, the ability to lose myself, it's so therapeutic. And that's for me. It doesn't necessarily mean for everybody. I love the water. I don't necessarily have to go into the water, even though I love to swim, but it's something about the ocean that brings me to a relaxation a calmness, almost like drinking a glass of wine and having my cigar. So, not telling you to do what I do. Maybe you're fine just sitting in your backyard. Maybe you live on 5 acres and you hug the wood line and you can just sit there and listen to the birds and the animals in the background. You know, I don't know what it might be for you, but figure that out and disconnect just for a little while. Figure out how long that is. You know, everybody may have a different time, maybe 30 minutes, maybe it's like me, 6 hours. Now, all of these were techniques that I have actually applied and it's working for me. Now, here are some things that I'm still struggling with, but I know I need to do it. And I want to share that with you. And maybe you can try to give it an effort and maybe you can do better than me. In fact, you might come up with some techniques. Well, share that with me and I'll put it on another show and we can do another episode and figure out how you were able to achieve this so we can share it with others. And the first one is acceptance and letting go. I have a hard time doing that. That's just my personality trait. When somebody does me wrong, I don't forget. It's interesting because I'm supposed to have TBI, but I sure as hell don't forget when somebody does me wrong. I don't know what it is, but that anger, it doesn't go away. I have relatives in my family that did me wrong when I was a kid. I still get angry when I see them. I still have a dislike towards them. And they probably either one, don't even remember, or two, think that it's, you know, I'm an adult now. It's okay, get over it. But I can't, because either one, because you never apologized, or two, you were an adult and you knew better and you did it anyway. So things like that is just hard for me to let go. And that's just one simple family little example, but you can probably relate. I'm sure you got people at work. You probably have a friend or an ex-friend, but these things, you know, it bothers you. Now, like I said, if we're trying to find peace in life, you should let go, right? I mean, if I put on my religion hat, it would be like, you know, what would Jesus do, right? You know, the whole, you know, forgive, you're supposed to forgive, blah, blah, blah. I like I said, I understand. I understand what I'm supposed to do. Just doing it is that's another story. So like I said, if you come up with a technique and you can do it and you got some sort of way of seeing past the anger or disappointment, hey, contact the show, let me know, and I will give it a try. All right, my next one is rediscovering your true self. Now, this is a challenge for me. I told you these are all the challenges. I know this is important to do, and it'll be great to do it because this brings you one step closer. But it's hard for me because I think there's a level of admittance that makes it difficult. So rediscovering your true self. Well, the rediscovering part means you used to already know. Now, for me now, because I'm post-military, a lot of who I was is hard to get back to. And then that true self is hard to understand who he was. Now, I do my best to try to think and remember the kind of person I was, especially with Facebook. I run into a lot of old school friends and I ask them sometimes, hey, how was I? Do you remember when I did this? Or the kind of person. And the thing is, they all give me these positive comments. But it's hard to get back to being that nerdy, shy kid when I'm completely opposite of that person now. So to rediscover that is one thing to know, it's another thing to do. So that one's a tough one. And I don't even know if that's even possible. But again, I'm giving you some tools. And if you're able to execute and get some sort of outcome from it, hey, all the power to you. And please contact the show and let me know how you did it. I am all ears. Another one is setting your limits.
Field Talk Against Urban Issues, formerly called Dr. Bryant Speaks, is a podcast show that provides information, programs, and experts that challenge mental health issues.